Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are ready to crack open one of the most frustrating parts of learning English.
It's one of those things that's absolutely essential if you want to sound fluent, but it can be so difficult to get your head around.
Absolutely. If you're learning English, you've definitely had that moment, that feeling of pure confusion.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking at a sentence, you know every single word, the noun, the verb, the adjective, you know what they all mean on their own.
But you put them together into these little 2 or 3 word phrases, and suddenly the meaning it doesn't add up.
Exactly. It's like you have all the building blocks, but you're missing the blueprint. You can't see the final structure.
And the reason for that, almost always, is the phrasal verb.
And let's be honest, you've probably been mentally blowing them off for a while now.
Just kind of hoping they've just,
Yeah, just blow over it, right.
Exactly. But they don't. And today, that habit stops. It's really time to dig in and understand this core mechanism that makes native English speakers sound the way they do.
So let's start with a clear definition. What exactly are we tackling here? Because the structure itself seems so simple.
It's deceptive, isn't it?
Yeah.
A phrasal verb is usually a 2-part, sometimes a 3-part verb. It starts with a regular base verb, something simple like blow or figure or add.
Okay.
And then it has a second part, which we call the particle. And that little word is usually a preposition or an adverb.
All right, let's unpack that with a really concrete example, one that I think shows the problem perfectly. Let's take the verb to blow.
Okay.
Literally, if you blow something, it means you're moving air. Wind blows dust. It's a physical, very straightforward action.
Right.
But then you add one tiny particle, off, and you get to blow off, and the meaning just completely shifts. It's unrecognizable.
That's it. That's the core difficulty right there. We call it a semantic shift. When you blow off a responsibility or you blow off a meeting.
Or even a person.
Or a person, yeah. It has absolutely nothing to do with moving air. It means you are deliberately ignoring something or dismissing it. Usually something important that you should be doing.
And the meaning is totally figurative. We use it all the time, but there's no logical bridge between blow and blow off.
No, you just have to know it. There's no formula to figure it out.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to give you a shortcut. We're going to expand your vocabulary, but more importantly, your understanding of English structure by really dissecting these tricky but crucial phrases.
And we're going to group them thematically so they're easier to remember. We're going to cover close to 50 of the most common ones.
50? Wow.
Yeah. And we'll focus not just on the definitions, but on the real-world context and some of the grammatical quirks that make them so difficult. So, yeah, let's get started.
Okay, let's do it. We can actually start with the examples we just used in the intro because they help nail down the structure and a really important concept, separability.
Good idea.
Yeah.
So we mentioned to figure out and to add up. Let's start with to figure out.
Right. The verb figure can mean what? To calculate something or to represent a shape.
Exactly. And out means, to exit or move outward. But put them together. And to figure out means to solve a problem or to finally understand a concept.
Okay, and this is where that idea of separable comes in. What does that mean for you as the listener?
It means that you can separate the verb and the particle. You can put the object of the verb right in the middle.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If the object is a noun, like the answer, you have a choice. You can say, I need to figure out the answer.
Okay, that sounds normal.
Or you can say, I need to figure the answer out. Both are perfectly correct.
So you have options.
You do. But, and this is the key rule, if the object is a pronoun, like it, or him, or them, the pronoun must go in the middle.
Oh, interesting.
You have to say, I need to figure it out. You can never, ever say, I need to figure out it.
That is a fantastic, actionable tip right there. That's one of those little things that really separates an advanced speaker from an intermediate one.
It is. It's a subtle but very strict rule. Now let's contrast that with our other example, to add up.
Right. When a story doesn't add up, you mean it doesn't make logical sense.
Exactly. You're not literally adding numbers. And in this sense, the phrasal verb is typically inseparable. You can't put an object in between add and up when you're talking about logic.
And you mentioned earlier that it's not always just 2 words. Sometimes it's 3.
Correct. When you run into a 3-part phrasal verb, it's made of the verb, a particle, and then a preposition. Think it's something like to back out of or to check up on.
Okay. Verb, particle, preposition.
Right. And just knowing the structure exists is key because 3-part phrasal verbs are almost always inseparable. The whole phrase is fused together and acts like a single unit. We'll definitely dive into more of those as we go.
Okay. For now, let's move into a new group, a cluster that deals with accountability and behavior. Let's start with the idea of explaining things. The verb to account for.
To account for has two main meanings, and they're both related to explanation. The first is to provide a cause or a reason for something.
Like in a financial report.
Exactly. In accounting, every single dollar has to be accounted for. You have to explain where the money went.
Okay. And the second meaning?
The second meaning is to represent a certain percentage of a whole. So, for example, if you're analyzing sales data, the North American market might account for 60% of total revenue.
So it's about causality on one hand and representation on the other. It's very quantitative, very factual.
Precisely. It's a pretty neutral verb. It's just about explaining reasons or measuring proportions.
But if we just shift that a tiny bit from account for to answer for, the tone changes completely. It gets much more serious. Is the answer for always a negative thing?
That's a great question. And yes, it almost always is. It carries a heavy weight of consequence.
So it's not just explaining something.
No. To answer for means to be held directly responsible or liable for your actions, especially when those actions are bad. It implies a negative outcome. You see it in legal contexts or in business ethics. A CEO who makes a disastrous decision will have to answer for it to the shareholders.
So it carries this feeling of justice or a reckoning.
A reckoning is a perfect word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would never say you had to answer for your team's amazing success. You'd take credit for that. You answer for mistakes and crimes.
That distinction really locks in the nuance. Okay, let's switch from accountability to just behavior. We have two that sound very similar and are often confused: to act out and to act up.
Yes. They both mean to cause trouble or behave badly, but the source of the trouble is what separates them.
Okay.
The distinction is subtle but really useful. To act out usually refers to a person, and we often use it for children, who is expressing some kind of internal stress or emotion through bad behavior.
So like a toddler having a tantrum because they're tired or hungry.
Exactly. They can't say, "I feel overwhelmed," so they act out by yelling or hitting. The disruptive behavior is an externalization of an internal feeling.
The behavior is a symptom of some other deeper problem.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Whereas to act up is a little broader. It just focuses on the troublemaking itself, and it can apply to people or to things.
To things, like inanimate objects.
Yes. You could say a student in your class was always acting up, just causing trouble for the sake of it. Maybe there was no deep psychological reason. They were just mischievous.
Okay.
But you could also say, "My old car has been acting up again." It means the engine is malfunctioning, causing problems.
Ah, I see. So the link is just causing trouble, whether it's a person being disruptive or a machine breaking down.
Exactly. So act out is more psychological, and act up is more about general disruption or malfunction. It's a great example of how a phrasal verb can jump from the human world to the mechanical world and keep its core meaning.
That's fascinating. Okay, let's move on. Let's explore a really flexible group, the back cluster. These all revolve around ideas of withdrawal and distance, but that little particle completely changes the context.
Right. And this connects to planning, too. If you don't want to have to back out of an expensive vacation plan, you need to think ahead. But let's start with the retreat verbs first. How about to back down?
To back down. This feels like it's about arguments.
It is. It means to withdraw your position or admit defeat. Usually in a confrontation or a debate, you're yielding your ground.
So if you're in a heated discussion with someone and they make a really good point, you might finally back down and say, okay, go, maybe you're right.
Exactly. It's a figurative withdrawal. The source material had a great contrast here. It mentioned a politician who had to back down from a controversial policy after public anger.
Ah, yeah, I remember that.
And it contrasted that with a stray cat that was absolutely not going to back down from a fight over his territory.
That really clarifies it. It's about yielding dominance or your position.
And that contrasts quite sharply with to back off.
Which is more about creating distance.
Yeah. Yes, physical or social distance. It means to become less aggressive, to give someone space. It often happens when you sense someone is getting overwhelmed or upset.
So if you see a coworker is really stressed out, you might decide to back off and stop asking them for that report.
Right. You give them some breathing room.
Sure.
Or, more literally, if someone is getting too close and yelling, security guard might tell them to back off.
Yeah.
The focus is on reducing aggression or proximity.
Okay, we've seen two-part verbs. Now for that three-part structure you mentioned, to back out of, this is specifically about agreements, isn't it?
Precisely. To back out of means to withdraw from a commitment or something you previously agreed to do. And this is a classic, inseparable three-part verb. You can't rearrange the words.
Right. You can't say, I back the agreement out of. It just sounds wrong.
Completely wrong. And it applies to really serious things, like a country backing out of an international treaty, and also everyday things, like a friend backing out of plans to go on vacation with you because it got too expensive.
It's all about breaking a promise or reneging on a commitment.
Exactly. And then finally, we have the most literal one of the group, to back up.
Which just means to move backward.
To physically move backwards, yes. You hear all the time in crowded places, everyone please back up to make room. But it also has a very common figurative meaning.
To support something.
Yes, to support or confirm a statement. If you tell the police you witnessed something, they'll ask if anyone can back up your story. They want someone to confirm what you said is true. So we have two distinct meanings here: physical retreat and verbal support.
That's a great reminder that a single phrasal verb can have multiple very different meanings. Okay, let's shift gears from retreat to preparation. Let's look at to allow for.
To allow for is all about foresight. It means taking something into consideration when you're making a plan, usually anticipating a problem or a special need.
So it's about building in a buffer.
That's a perfect way to put it. If you're making a budget, you should always allow for unexpected emergencies, like a medical bill. You're building in a financial buffer.
Or if you're driving to the airport, you need to allow for traffic. You build in a time buffer.
Exactly. It's the linguistic tool for creating a contingency plan.
Which leads us to making formal plans with the verb to apply for.
Right. To apply for means to make a formal request for something. This almost always involves some kind of paperwork or official process. You apply for a job, a scholarship, a passport, a mortgage.
The formality is the key part.
It is. The source material made a great point about this. It said, even if you don't think you meet every single qualification for a job, you should still apply for it. The act of applying is what starts the process.
And if you're really serious about applying for that new job, you are probably banking on getting it. This feels like it's about risk and hope.
That's a great connection. To bank on something means to base your hopes and plans on a specific outcome happening. It signals a very high degree of reliance and often a lot of risk.
So you're treating a future event as if it's as certain as money in the bank.
Precisely. A small business might order a huge amount of new inventory because they're banking on strong holiday sales. It's a calculated gamble.
I think we've all done that on a smaller scale. You buy expensive gifts for everyone because you're banking on getting that year-end bonus from work.
Yes, it's the perfect way to express that high-stakes hope that's tied to a future event.
Okay, let's jump into what you called the volatile blow cluster. This covers everything from physical force to emotional reactions. We started the whole dive with a blow verb, so let's continue with the most obvious one, to blow up.
Right. To blow up has that very literal, visceral meaning of an explosion. A bomb, fireworks, a chemical reaction.
But the figurative meanings are just as common. First, it can mean to get incredibly angry at someone, right?
Yes. To explode with anger. You might say, my boss blew up at me for being 5 minutes late. It's a sudden, intense, emotional outburst.
And there's the second figurative meaning that's really important in social media and business today.
To grow very rapidly, yes. A small YouTube channel can suddenly blow up and get millions of subscribers overnight. A new product can launch and just blow up, attracting huge sales. It implies explosive, rapid growth.
And this one is separable, isn't it?
It is when you're talking about inflating something. You can say, can you blow up these balloons? Or can you blow these balloons up? Both work.
Now let's circle back to the verb we started with, to blow off. We defined it as dismissing something.
Right. Ignoring or dismissing, usually an obligation. It really speaks to irresponsibility. You might blow off studying for an exam, or on a social level, you might blow off a friend by not showing up to their party.
It's a conscious choice to ignore something or someone.
It is. But on the other hand, we have a much calmer verb, to bloat over.
This sounds like something temporary.
It is. To blow over means to pass, to settle down, or could go away on its own. It implies a difficult situation that will resolve itself if you just wait. We can wait inside for a thunderstorm to blow over.
Or an argument.
Or an argument, exactly. A politician might hope a scandal will just blow over if they stay quiet for a few weeks. It's about trouble that just fades away.
And then there's the very intense but positive feeling of to be blown away.
This is pure amazement.
Yeah.
It's when you are so shocked or impressed by something that you're, figuratively knocked over by it.
So you could be blown away by an incredible piece of music or an amazing movie.
Absolutely. Or you could be blown away by someone's generosity. It's just an overwhelming positive shock.
Okay, let's shift from that explosive force to something more reductive. When we're dealing with a lot of complex information, we need to find the essential message, and that often boils down to one key idea.
Yes, to boil down to is one of my favorite phrasal verbs. It's for summarizing. You use it when you're reducing a very complicated situation or a long argument to its most fundamental element.
So you could analyze a business for hours, but at the end of the day, its success boils down to great leadership.
Perfect example. You're distilling all that complexity down to its essence. That's really what we try to do in this deep dive. We take a big topic and find what it boils down to.
It's like you're reducing a whole pot of soup down to the most concentrated, flavorful broth.
That's a great metaphor for it.
And finally, in this group, let's talk about to block off, which is about creating separation.
Right. This can be very physical and literal. The police might block off a street after an accident.
So no one can pass.
Correct. But it's also used metaphorically, which is really useful for productivity. You might need to block off an hour in your calendar every morning just for answering emails.
So you're creating a protected space or time for a specific task.
Exactly. You're mentally or physically separating that time or that space for one single purpose.
Let's start this next section with a really common one to bring up, which just means to mention something.
Right. To introduce a topic into a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's often used when that topic is a little sensitive or difficult.
So you might say to your partner, I hate to bring this up, but we need to talk about our finances.
Exactly. You're signaling that you're about to introduce a potentially tricky subject. And it's separable. You can bring the subject up.
And we can connect this back to an earlier verb. Remember the example where someone tries to bring up the idea of a pay raise?
And the boss just blew him off. Yes, that's a very fluent, natural combination of phrasal verbs.
Now let's get into the call cluster. This one is tricky because the prepositions for, on, out change the meaning so much. Let's start with necessity, to call for.
To call for means to require or to demand something. It's very functional. A recipe calls for 2 cups of flour.
So the recipe demands it.
It requires it, yes. Or, in a more serious context, a national crisis might call for immediate government action. The situation itself creates the demand.
And the most powerful use is in that old saying, desperate times call for desperate measures.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The desperate situation inherently requires a desperate solution. The need is built right into the context.
Now that's different from to call on, which is more about asking for help.
It is. To call on someone means to formally ask them to do something or to appeal to them for help. The president might call on citizens to conserve energy.
Or in a classroom, a teacher can call on a student to answer a question.
Exactly. It's an active request for a response or for assistance.
And then there's the most confrontational one, to call out.
To call out means to publicly criticize or point out a problem, usually with someone's behavior. The goal is often exposure and accountability.
So you could call out a company for unethical practices?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or on a smaller scale, you could call out your roommate for never doing the dishes.
Yeah.
The key is that the criticism is open and public, not private. You're trying to force a change.
So just to recap, call for is to require, call on is to request, and call out is to criticize. That's a great distinction. Okay, moving to logistics and finance. I saw a sentence the other day that said, I had to carry over a balance on my credit card. Why is money being carried?
That's a perfect example of the semantic shift. To carry over means to transfer something unfinished or unresolved to a later time period.
So it's about continuation.
It's about the continuation of its status. If you have tasks you didn't finish today, you have to carry them over to your to-do list for tomorrow. They don't just disappear.
And with money, that's usually not a good thing.
No, it is not. If you don't pay your full credit card bill, the remaining debt will carry over to the next month's statement, and it will usually have interest added. The liability continues.
Which brings us to a really important financial goal for any new business, to break even.
To break even. This means to reach the point where your total income is exactly equal to your total costs. You haven't made a profit, but you also haven't lost any money.
So if you spend $1,000 to start a small business, and in your first month you make exactly $1,000.
You broke even. It's a critical milestone. It means your business is viable even if it's not profitable yet.
And just to reinforce the grammar, the past tense is irregular there, right? They broke even.
That's right. Broke even is the standard past tense usage.
Okay, let's move into the check cluster, which is all about investigation and making sure things are okay. The most basic one is probably to check out.
To check out is very common, and it has two main, very distinct meanings. It's also separable.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is investigative. It means to look into something that seems interesting. Hey, you should check out this new restaurant downtown.
And you can separate it. You should check this restaurant out.
Exactly. The second meaning is about leaving a place officially. You check out of a hotel, you check out books from the library. The context makes it clear which meaning you're using.
But when you add that third part and you get to check up on, the tone changes. It becomes about monitoring someone's welfare.
It does. To check up on means to see if someone is okay or something is working correctly. You might call your parents just to check up on them.
Or if your kids are playing in the other room and it gets suddenly quiet.
You go to check up on them, absolutely. But it's also used in a business context for monitoring performance. A manager might check up on a project's progress. It's all about verification.
Okay. Next, let's look at two verbs about shifting opinions and pursuit. First, the gradual change of to come around.
To come around means to change your opinion about something, usually slowly and after some persuasion or new evidence.
So maybe you used to hate a certain type of music, but your friend plays it all the time, and now you're starting to come around.
That's a perfect example. It's a gradual shift in preference. You didn't suddenly decide you love it. You slowly moved to a new position.
Which is very different from to come after. That sounds immediate and kind of threatening.
It is. To come after means to pursue or chase someone or something aggressively.
Yeah.
The classic example is literal. The guard dog started coming after me.
But it can be metaphorical too, right?
Oh, yes. The tax agency might come after you for unpaid taxes.
Yeah.
It implies an aggressive, relentless pursuit, whether it's physical or legal.
Got it. Now, for rules and authority, there's a really strong phrasal verb, to crack down on.
Yes. To crack down on means to start enforcing a rule or a law much more strictly than before. It's always an action taken by an authority in response to a growing problem.
So if people start speeding too much in a neighborhood, the police might decide to crack down on speeding there.
Exactly. They'll start giving out more tickets. Or a school might crack down on students using their phones in class because it's become a huge distraction.
It's a response to rule breaking that's gotten out of control. The source had a funny example about a library starting to crack down on overdue books.
Right, and suddenly everyone had to answer for their late fees. That's a perfect way to connect these verbs.
And on a much, much lighter note, but structurally important, we have to crack up.
To crack up just means to laugh really hard at something, to find it hilarious.
And this one is a great example of separability.
It's one of the clearest examples. You could say, his jokes always crack me up. The pronoun me has to go in the middle.
Right. You'd never say crack up me.
Never. You can also just tell someone directly, you crack me up.
Huh.
The structure is very flexible and very common.
Okay, let's focus on the cut cluster now, which is all about changing size and aptitude. We can start with the most literal one, to cut up.
To cut up is very straightforward. It just means to use a knife or scissors to cut something into smaller pieces. You cut up an onion for dinner. You cut up paper for a collage. Very physical.
But if you add the particle back, you get to cut back on, which means to reduce.
Right. To cut back on means to reduce your consumption of something or to do an activity less often. Your doctor might tell you to cut back on sugar.
Or if you're saving money, you need to cut back on going out to restaurants.
Exactly. The key is moderation or reduction. And this is different from, say, to cut off, which means to stop completely. Cutting back is just doing less.
Okay, now, for what I think is one of the most interesting and figurative phrasal verbs, to be cut out for. This is about natural talent, isn't it?
It is. To be cut out for something means you have the perfect natural ability or personality for a specific role or activity.
The metaphor is so good. It's like the universe literally cut you into the perfect shape for that job.
That's a great way to think about it. If someone is patient and creative and loves children, you'd say they're cut out for being a teacher.
And it's so useful in the negative, too, for just knowing yourself. I know for a fact that I'm not cut out for being a surgeon. The stress, the pressure, I couldn't handle it.
And that self-awareness is really important. Knowing what you're not cut out for can save you a lot of trouble. You're acknowledging that your personal shape doesn't fit that particular role.
Exactly. Okay, moving on to the fall cluster. This covers a lot of ground, from decline and deception to having a backup plan. Let's start with a negative one, to fall down.
To fall down can be literal, of course, like you fall down the stairs, but figuratively. It means to decrease in quality or to fail to meet a standard. A company's profits might fall down during a recession.
So it's a negative decline.
Yes. And then we have the idea of deception with to fall for.
To be tricked by something.
To be tricked, yes. To be deceived. And the key insight here is that it's a passive experience. It happens to you. You don't try to be deceived. You fall for a clever email scam.
Or you fall for someone's tough guy act, only to realize they're actually very sensitive.
Exactly. You mistake the illusion for reality. It's an involuntary deception.
That idea of it happening to you is really powerful. Now, a more social dynamic is captured by to fall in with.
To fall in with means to start associating with a group of people, often by accident or without really intending to.
This is where that classic parental warning comes from, right?
Exactly. Don't fall in with the wrong crowd. It implies that you might get drawn into the orbit of a group that could be a bad influence on you.
Okay, now, this all raises a question about being prepared for when things go wrong, which brings us to fall back on.
Your safety net. To fall back on means to use a backup plan or a resource when your main plan fails.
So if you lose your job, you have to fall back on your savings.
Right. Or let's say your main career becomes obsolete, you might have to fall back on another skill you have, like maybe you're also a great carpenter. It's your plan B, your reliable contingency.
Having something to fall back on definitely provides some peace of mind.
It does.
And finally, in this cluster, the very unfortunate situation of to fall out.
To fall out means to have a major disagreement with someone that ruins the relationship. It often leads to people not speaking to each other anymore.
So two best friends could fall out over a misunderstanding and never speak again?
Exactly. And what's interesting here is how common this is. We even use the noun form all the time. You'll hear people say, they had a huge falling out last year. It shows how deeply these verbs are embedded in the language.
We're almost there. We're winding down with a final, really robust set of essential verbs. Let's start with the fill cluster, all about adding information or substance. We need to distinguish between to fill in and to fill out.
Yes, the scope is the key difference. To fill in is usually for smaller, specific pieces of missing information. You're filling in the blanks.
Like on a quiz, you fill in the correct answer.
Exactly. Or if your friend missed a meeting, you can fill them in on what happened. You're giving them the specific details they don't have.
Whereas to fill out is for a much larger document.
Right. To fill out is for completing a comprehensive form. You fill out a job application, you fill out your tax forms. It implies a larger, more extensive document.
And then totally different is to fill up.
To fill up is purely about physical capacity. It means to add a substance until something is completely full. You fill up the car with gas.
Or, my favorite, you fill up on bread at a restaurant and then you're too full for your actual meal.
Happens to the best of us. It's just about reaching maximum physical capacity.
Okay, moving to distribution and defeat. Let's start with to give out.
To give out means to distribute something to a group of people. A volunteer at a marathon might give out bottles of water to the runners.
But it has a second, completely different meaning, doesn't it? Related to failure.
It does. It can also mean for something to stop working due to exhaustion or stress. If you're running a marathon, your legs might give out near the end, or an old engine might finally give out.
So one meaning is positive distribution, and the other is negative collapse.
Exactly. Now, the opposite of persevering is to give up on something.
This is admitting defeat.
Yes, losing faith in something or someone and stopping your effort. You might reluctantly give up on trying to fix an old computer that keeps breaking. Or a fan might give up on their favorite sports team after a decade of losing.
And then there's the more immediate physical threat of to give way.
To give way is specifically about structural collapse under pressure. An old wooden floor might give way if too many people stand on it. A dam could give way during a flood. It's all about physical, structural failure.
Okay, let's transition to verbs about waiting and just keeping going. The simplest is probably to hang on.
To hang on just means to wait for a short time. Hang on a second, I'm almost ready. It's an informal request to pause.
And it can also mean to hold something tightly.
Right. To keep something. You might hang on to an old photograph for sentimental reasons.
Next, we have to hold up, which is about delays.
Yes. To hold up means something has caused a delay or prevented progress. Bad weather can hold up a construction project. A traffic jam can hold up thousands of people on their way to work.
So the delay is the central meaning.
It is. But the very similar sounding to hold out has a completely different feeling. It's about hope, and resistance.
What's the nuance there?
The nuance is the expectation tied to the waiting. To hold out means to wait, but specifically because you're hoping for a better outcome. You might hold out for a higher salary offer instead of accepting the first one you get.
You believe a better option is coming if you just wait.
Precisely. Or, in a military sense, soldiers under siege might hold out against an attack because they know reinforcements are coming. Their resistance is fueled by that hope.
That's a great distinction. Okay, finally, the keep cluster, all about continuation. Let's start with to keep off.
To keep off means to avoid touching or going on to something. The sign on the lawn says, keep off the grass.
Or you wear a hat to keep the sun off your face. It's about maintaining separation.
Exactly. Then there's to keep on, which is pure continuation.
To continue doing something.
Yes, without stopping. And this gives us that wonderful, encouraging phrase for when times are tough. Keep on keeping on.
It's advice for perseverance. Even when it's hard, you just have to keep on trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is what you need to do if you want to keep up with everything we're talking about today.
Nice transition. So to keep up with is about maintaining the same pace.
The same pace or the same level. It can be physical, like trying to keep up with a faster runner, but it's very often intellectual. It can be hard to keep up with a professor who talks too fast.
And our very last phrasal verb for this deep dive, a really important one for social dynamics, to keep to yourself.
To keep to yourself means to be private or introverted, to avoid a lot of social interaction. You might have neighbors who are nice people, but they generally keep to themselves.
And there's a grammar rule here, right? With the pronoun.
A very important one. It requires a reflexive pronoun that has to match the subject. So I keep to myself, you keep to yourself, they keep to themselves. It has to match.
Wow. We just covered nearly 50 essential phrasal verbs. We went from the basic mechanics all the way to the specifics of retreat, aptitude, persistence. That is a massive amount of information.
It is. It's a huge injection of core native-sounding English into your knowledge base.
And if you're feeling like that was a lot to keep up with.
Well, just remember the principle we talked about earlier. Learning all this new vocabulary, it all ultimately boils down to one single idea.
And what's that?
You have to keep on keeping on. That's it. Continuous, persistent practice is the only way this stuff becomes automatic. The only way you stop having to, pause and translate it in your head.
So it's not about being perfect tomorrow. It's just about continuing to try to use them.
Absolutely. Just think about what we covered. How these tiny little words, off, up, out, for, completely change everything. Mastering this is really the difference between translating words and truly understanding the language.
So as a final challenge for you, the listener, we want you to use one of the key verbs we covered. Think about a job or an activity that you know for sure you are not cut out for.
Maybe it's being an accountant, maybe it's being a musician.
Whatever it is. And try to say it out loud to yourself or to a friend. Articulate why you are not cut out for it.
The more you use these phrases in a real, immediate context, the faster they'll stick. If you can answer that question, you're moving the knowledge from just passive understanding into your active speech.
And if you want to explore more of these subtle differences that trip people up, we have a future deep dive planned that will crack open one of the most common points of confusion.
Yes.
The difference between the simple verb to break and the crucial, very different phrasal verb to break down. Don't mix those two up.
Well, that's a topic that will definitely take a full analysis to figure out all the nuances. I look forward to that one. But for now, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time. Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take a mountain of information, in this case a digital mountain, and distill it into pure, context-driven, applicable knowledge.
A very, very big mountain today.
A huge one. Today, we are tackling what many, many people consider the true gatekeeper of English fluency. We're talking about phrasal verbs. And we're not talking about just, adding more items to your vocabulary list. We are talking about mastering over 200 essential phrasal verbs, the ones that immediately make you sound native, natural, and frankly, highly professional.
Right. And that's the key distinction, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, if your goal is to transition from sounding like you're reading a carefully structured sentence.
Like an audio textbook.
Yeah, exactly. Like an audio textbook. To sounding like you're just having an effortless, real-world conversation. Phrasal verbs they're the only way to get there. They're the linguistic shortcuts that let ideas flow without that stiffness of formal grammar.
Our source material for this is, it's immense. It's a comprehensive masterclass video designed to teach hundreds of these verbs, all broken down into these manageable groups.
A great resource, but yeah, the sheer volume of it can be a lot.
It can be overwhelming. So our mission in this deep dive is to be your filter. We're cutting straight through the bulk to focus purely on the verbs that offer the most immediate high-impact improvements for you, the learner. We want to spend our time on the verbs that matter most for business, for social life, and for emotional expression.
And just to ground everyone really quickly, let's define what we're talking about. Phrasal verbs are, at their core, simple combinations. You take a verb and you pair it with one or two prepositions.
Like around and to come around to.
Precisely. The critical thing, though, is that this combination almost always creates a meaning that is totally removed from the original verb. It's like a form of linguistic alchemy.
That's a perfect way to put it, alchemy. Because if you try to literally translate these combinations, you fail. Every single time.
You really do.
So the real goal of this deep dive isn't just reciting definitions from a flashcard. It's about understanding the context. We need to know not just what a verb means, but when and how to use it. Whether you're in a boardroom negotiating or just sharing a story with friends or describing a really complicated emotional situation.
Exactly. The difference between saying, I will postpone the meeting and I will push back the meeting is subtle. Right?
Yeah.
But one feels perfectly natural and the other just feels a little stilted, a little bit formal. Our job is to give you that natural feeling.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with the verbs that govern how we interact, how we communicate our ideas, and, how we try to influence others.
When we talk about influence, clarity is paramount. So we have to begin with get across. This one is all about clearly and effectively communicating a point or a message. It's a very high stakes verb.
It is, because if you're a professional, the messages you deliver often carry a lot of weight, and sometimes they carry difficult news. For instance, if you're prepping for a client review, your manager might tell you, you have to make absolutely sure you get across that the project is over budget.
Right.
The message itself is tough, but the successful use of this phrasal verb means the client not only heard the words, but they understood the full implications of that budget overrun.
And what's so interesting about it is that we often use this reflexively when we realize we haven't been clear. You know that feeling?
Yeah, you're halfway through a sentence and you see their eyes glaze over.
Exactly. You're talking and the ideas are rambling or complex, and you see that confusion on the listener's face. So you stop yourself, you reset, and you say, wait, what I'm trying to get across is, followed by the one key sentence.
So it acts as an immediate self-correction mechanism?
It does. It signals, okay, ignore what I just said. This is the important part. It's so useful for clarity.
That's a great point, especially since most learners, they initially translate these verbs literally. The idea of getting something and putting it across a table it doesn't make any sense unless you internalize that. It refers to the successful transmission of an idea.
Absolutely. And the failure mode of that is, of course, to ramble on.
Oh, the dreaded ramble on.
We've all been in meetings with someone who does this. Ramble on is just talking at length without ever getting to the core point. And the source material highlights a critical usage note here. This is almost exclusively used negatively. It's a complaint or a criticism.
So you wouldn't say it about yourself, usually.
Not unless you're being self-deprecating. You'd say, the keynote speaker rambles on for the first 30 minutes. And that implies frustration. It implies the audience's time was wasted. They never got the insight they were promised.
Okay, so here's a question then. If someone is really excited and talking a lot because they're just enthusiastic, is that still rambling on? Or is it only when the communication is ineffective?
That's a fantastic distinction to make. If they are just talking excitedly about a topic, we might say they're going on and on.
Right.
Ramble on usually implies a lack of structure, a lack of focus, and just inefficiency. If the communication is ineffective because they lack a clear point, that's when we use ramble on. If they're just talkative, that's a different verb entirely.
Okay, that clarifies it. So once we've established clarity, the next step is introducing a subject. In a formal or professional setting, we use bring up.
Yes, this is a must-know verb for meetings, for emails, or even just informal discussions with a colleague. It simply means beginning a discussion on a specific topic. The person leading a meeting might wrap things up by asking, does anyone have anything else they need to bring up before we adjourn?
It's versatile enough for sensitive topics too, right? Like I need to bring up the issue with the budget.
Exactly. It gives the topic a certain weight. And I noticed in the source examples, you can also use it retrospectively, talking about missed opportunities. I didn't get a chance to bring up the marketing proposal because the finance meeting ran long.
Oh, I like that. It shows intentionality. Even if the action didn't happen, you planned to do it.
That intentionality is key. It indicates that the topic was prepared or scheduled or at least considered important enough to be included, which sets it apart from just mentioning something off the cuff.
Okay, moving into the world of influence, we have this great pair. Talk into and talk up. Let's start with talk into, convincing someone to do something.
Right. The primary nuance here, and this is really important, is that the person being convinced, the one being talked into something, was usually reluctant at first.
Ah, so you're overcoming their resistance.
You are. If your sister talked you into skydiving, it implies you initially had fear or hesitation, and she overcame it through persuasion. If you were already excited to go, we wouldn't use talk into. We'd just say you decided to go together.
So it's only used when persuasion is truly required. It implies a degree of salesmanship even in your personal life.
Totally. Now, talk up is different. That's speaking enthusiastically and positively about a person or a product.
And this is where you can step into the territory of a little bit of exaggeration.
A little bit, yeah. When you talk up a new piece of software, you are highlighting all its brilliant features. And maybe you're not mentioning its compatibility flaws so much.
Right.
This is classic sales or advocacy language. If you're advocating for a friend who's applying for a job, you talk up their skills and experience, maybe focusing only on their biggest successes.
I find that line between honest advocacy and exaggeration fascinating. It's used professionally to champion an idea, but you have to be careful that talking up the benefits doesn't cross over into misinformation. It relies so much on the speaker's trustworthiness.
Precisely. The language suggests enthusiasm, but that enthusiasm often implies filtering out the negative information. It's an editorial choice, if you will, to highlight only the upsides.
So if that whole conversation is about a fundamental internal belief, we shift to come around to.
Come around to. This means changing one's opinion or finally seeing a new point of view. It describes a gradual shift. It's not an instant realization. It's a slow process of acceptance.
So an example would be something like, the whole team was against the proposal at first, but after the test period, they started to come around to the idea.
Perfect. It describes the evolution of a mindset. And structure-wise, the source points out you can often drop the specific object if it's already clear from the context.
Right, like if you've been arguing about moving to the countryside for a year. At first, I hated the idea, but I finally came around after spending a weekend there.
Exactly. The idea of moving is completely implied. The opinion is the implied object.
And finally, when we decide we've heard enough of an idea or a person, we simply tune out.
We all do it.
That's stopping listening or paying attention, often because the content is unpleasant or boring or just totally irrelevant to you. We all did it as teenagers when our parents give us endless advice.
Constantly.
But I think it's crucial to distinguish this from a similar sounding phrase, zone out.
Oh, that's a very important point for learners. To tune out implies an active, often conscious rejection of the source of communication. You are choosing to stop listening to the negative coworker, for example.
You're putting up a wall.
You are. Zone out, however, is involuntary. It's a momentary lapse of concentration, often due to tiredness or boredom, where you just mentally drift off. You don't choose to zone out. It just happens.
But you choose to tune out negative input.
Yes. So if I have a consistently negative colleague who complains all the time, I actively tune them out to preserve my own peace of mind. I'm not listening, but I'm still physically present.
You have psychologically blocked the communication. It's a defense mechanism and an essential phrasal verb for describing emotional boundaries, especially in the office.
It really is.
Speaking of the office, that leads us naturally into our next section. We're going to apply this knowledge to the high-stakes environment of work. We're covering everything from contracts and formal agreements to dealing with deadlines and professional burnout.
Right. And here we need to start by understanding the language of officialdom, the formal verbs governing rules and regulations. The formal phrasal verb abide by is key here. It means to accept or follow a rule, a regulation, or an instruction, even if you disagree with it.
This one definitely feels like a verb used by lawyers or government officials. It carries a heavy sense of obligation, doesn't it?
It does. It's used with governmental or court regulations or really strict business policies. The source examples emphasize that it's often used when compliance is mandatory, regardless of your personal feelings.
So if a court decision doesn't rule in your favor, you still have to accept it and abide by it.
You have to. It implies legally binding adherence.
So saying, our team must abide by the new security protocols carries a lot more weight than our team should follow the new rules.
So much more weight. The first implies real consequences for failure to comply. It signals seriousness.
Now, if following rules is one thing, creating them, especially in documentation, is another. When official paperwork needs preparation, we use draw up.
Draw up. This means preparing official paperwork, and it specifically implies something that needs to be formalized with signatures, usually a contract, an agreement, or a formal proposal.
You ask your lawyer to draw up the papers for a property sale, or you wait for the bank to draw up the mortgage agreement?
Exactly. It signifies that final stage of documentation where all the terms are translated into binding text. It's often used when the document requires extensive legal language or very specific formatting.
And once those formal agreements are in place, the action begins. To perform or conduct a task, especially in a structured business context, we use carry out.
This is a highly efficient professional verb. We don't usually use it for simple personal actions, but for defined procedures.
Okay.
A company is carrying out tasks. They might be carrying out customer surveys, meaning they are conducting or performing those surveys according to a specific methodology.
Or, we need to carry out a full risk assessment before proceeding. It implies following a protocol to complete the task. This is where we need to differentiate. Why would you use carry out instead of the simpler verb do?
Well, do is just too general. Carry out implies a formal execution of a plan or an instruction. When a CEO says, we need to carry out the acquisition strategy, it suggests adherence to a multi-step plan devised by management. It elevates the level of formality and really emphasizes precision in execution.
That makes perfect sense. Now let's talk about performance. When you put all your attention on something specific, focusing deeply, you hone in on it.
This is a fantastic focusing verb. If a business has a massive market, right, they can't target everyone, they decide they should really home in on small business owners. They're focusing all their resources, all their attention, and all their marketing efforts on that one specific customer segment. It's aggressive, deep focus.
Okay, wait, I thought the phrase was home in on, like a homing missile finding its target. I swear that's what I've heard native speakers use all the time.
That is a crucial point, and I'm glad you brought it up. The source material specifically addresses this because it is one of the most common native speaker mistakes.
Really?
Really. While it sounds intuitive, home, as in finding a target, the correct verb is hone in on. Hone means to sharpen or perfect. You are sharpening your focus or perfecting your aim.
Wow, that's a huge distinction I need to make a note of immediately. So if I hear someone say home in on, they are technically using the incorrect version, even if the meaning is generally understood.
That is precisely correct.
Yeah.
For a learner aiming for perfect professional English, you must stick with hone in on. It demonstrates a much more advanced understanding of the etymology and context of the verb.
Excellent. Okay, so when that focus is not enough and the performance needs to increase dramatically, we move to step up, or more commonly, step it up.
Step it up just means to work harder or try harder. The it in the expression represents the current level of effort or work. You might tell a colleague, we need to step it up if we're going to meet the deadline because right now we're lagging.
And if you want to be even more specific about the requested degree of effort, there's that common idiomatic extension.
Right, you add a notch. To step it up a notch means a small, measurable increase in effort, like moving a dial 1 unit higher. It's a very common idiomatic way of asking for just a little more intensity.
So if you're training for a marathon and your coach tells you to step it up a notch?
They mean push yourself just a little harder on this last interval. Not a huge leap, just a bit more.
That sustained pressure to perform, to constantly step it up, sometimes leads to a significant negative consequence: burnout.
This is a verb that has entered the global lexicon because it describes a universal problem. To burn out is to feel mentally or physically exhausted from prolonged stress. And that duration is the absolute key.
Right, it's not just being tired after a long week.
No, it's systemic exhaustion that lasts for weeks, months, or even years. It's chronic stress, not acute stress.
Exactly. It applies heavily to professional life. I burned out at my last job due to 70-hour work weeks, but also to intense personal situations, like being a caregiver for an extended period. The emotional and physical toll of long-term high-stress situations leads to complete exhaustion.
It really does.
And since we're adding depth here, what's the difference between being burned out and just feeling temporarily run down?
That's a great point of clarification. If you feel run down, you are temporarily fatigued or maybe a little bit ill. You just need a weekend of rest. You recover quickly.
Okay.
If you are burned out, you are fundamentally exhausted, disillusioned, and you require significant time, often professional help, to recover. Burnout implies a crisis, while rundown implies temporary tiredness.
Once you've hit rock bottom or a business faces a major setback, the inevitable goal is recovery, which we often call to bounce back.
Bounce back. It means to recover or recuperate, just like a tennis ball rebounding off the court. And this applies perfectly to both business and personal challenges. After a major financial loss, a CEO might say, we need a new strategy to bounce back from our Q2 sales slump.
Or personally, after a serious injury or a long illness. It took me 6 months of physical therapy to bounce back after my skiing accident. It really conveys resilience and a successful recovery.
It's a great verb because it suggests active participation in the recovery process, not just passive healing. You're part of it.
Finally, let's drill down on a common source of confusion in logistics: the critical difference between pushback and call-off.
This distinction is so crucial for scheduling clarity. To push back means to delay or postpone a scheduled event. It is still happening, just later.
Okay, so the action itself is maintained, only the time slot changes.
Correct. If a meeting was scheduled for Monday morning, but the critical presenter is unavailable, you push the meeting back until Wednesday afternoon.
Whereas to call off means to cancel the scheduled event entirely.
Entirely. The event is not going to happen at all. And often, calling off implies problems or issues or serious changes. If an organizing committee cancels an entire conference due to low ticket sales, they call off the conference.
Socially, this is huge. If someone calls off a wedding, that's a massive announcement implying a huge issue.
Right.
Whereas if they push back the date, it's just a logistical delay.
Exactly. The emotional weight of the two verbs is vastly different. And professionally, you can use pushback for things other than meetings too, like deadlines. We need to push back the deadline on the quarterly report. It's versatile for any scheduled timing.
Now let's switch gears and examine the phrasal verbs that define our relationships, how we build trust, manage conflict, and maintain our personal reputation, among others.
Okay, so the foundation of any strong relationship is trust. And we have 3 extremely common phrasal verbs here that, thankfully, are almost completely interchangeable. Count on, rely on, and depend on.
That does simplify things. But since we are doing a depth dive, are there any subtle differences in formality or frequency?
There are. They're very subtle. Count on is often the most informal and frequently used in casual speech. I can always count on you to bring the coffee.
Right.
Rely on is slightly more formal and often used in professional contexts or when you're discussing resources. We rely on this specific software to do our work.
And depend on.
Depend on is often used when discussing life necessities, sometimes with a slightly negative tone if the dependency is absolute. The whole town depends on that one factory for jobs. But in day-to-day conversation, they mean the same thing: to trust someone or something to complete a specific task.
And we hear this trio constantly in that question and response format. Can I count on you to close the deal?
Absolutely, you can count on me. It's an immediate affirmation of reliability. It's excellent for demonstrating commitment.
Now, friction is inevitable in relationships, and we use come between to describe when something disturbs a professional, social, or family relationship.
Yes, and as you pointed out in the source summary, most people immediately think of a third person causing trouble.
Right. A new rival came between the two brothers.
Exactly. But the critical insight is that the disturbance doesn't have to be a person at all. It can be an abstract concept, an object, or an event.
Okay, let's explore that for a minute. Give us some examples of non-person disturbances.
Well, money's a classic. The inheritance came between the siblings, and they stopped speaking. Or political differences. Their constant arguments about policy eventually came between them.
Professionally, competing priorities can do it. The extreme pressure to get promoted came between the two colleagues who used to be close friends.
Yes, it's anything that creates a lasting rift. It just emphasizes how phrasal verbs can encapsulate these really complex scenarios in just 2 words.
So how do we heal those rifts? We have 2 key verbs: make up and make it up to someone.
Right, so to make up with someone is purely about emotional resolution. It means forgiving someone after an argument or dispute and just ending the conflict. It applies to kids fighting over a game or coworkers resolving a professional disagreement so they can keep collaborating. The argument is over.
And make it up to someone involves compensation, either emotional or material.
That's right. It means compensating for a previous wrongdoing. So if you had to cancel plans last minute, your absence is the wrongdoing. You promise, I will make it up to you by cooking you dinner next week. You are balancing the scales.
In the business world, this is a vital tool for client relations. If your company accidentally went over budget on a project, you might offer a discount to make it up to them for the financial mistake.
Yes, it's a formal acknowledgement of the error and a proactive offer of reconciliation. It shows accountability. which is essential.
Okay, moving to how we manage our own perception and status, we have show off.
Show off. It's deliberately displaying skills, abilities, or possessions to impress other people. And it almost always comes with a negative connotation in social settings. If someone is bragging about their expensive new car, we tell them, stop showing off.
It suggests vanity.
It does. But as the source pointed out, there are specific, necessary times to show off your skills.
Absolutely. If you are in a job interview, you shouldn't be falsely modest. You should emphatically show off your best qualities, your experience, your accomplishments.
Exactly. Or if you're taking an English proficiency exam, you have to show off your advanced vocabulary and perfect grammar to score highly. Context determines whether it is negative vanity or necessary self-promotion.
And if someone is exhibiting skills we admire, we might look up to them.
Look up to is the perfect verb for admiration or respect, for holding someone in high regard. It applies universally, family members, public figures, or your boss. I really look up to my boss. She handles stress so well. It's about aspiration.
On the flip side of admiration is the necessity of toleration, which requires us to put up with things we dislike.
Put up with. It means tolerating bad, annoying, or unwanted behavior. And notice it's a 3-word phrasal verb, put up with. It describes enduring something unpleasant that you have no power to change immediately.
So you might say, I don't know how you put up with the constant noise from your neighbors.
Exactly. And crucially, this verb is often used in the negative to set a boundary when you finally decide you've had enough. I'm not going to put up with that level of disrespect any longer.
Ah, it signals a change in dynamic.
That's a classic application. It sets a clear limit, drawing a line in the sand about what behavior is acceptable to you.
Okay, next, let's consider internal realization. Dawn on is an excellent verb for finally realizing or understanding something, often suddenly after a period of confusion.
And this verb has a very specific structure that must be used correctly. It requires the impersonal subject, it. For example, it just dawned on me that I need to change careers. You can't say, I just dawned on. The it represents the realization itself hitting you.
So it's often used in place of, I just had an epiphany, or I just finally realized. It's instantaneous understanding.
Yes, often accompanied by a sense of surprise or relief.
When considering that career change that just dawned on you, you might need time to mull over the idea.
Mull over. It means thinking about or considering an idea, a proposal, or a suggestion carefully, often for a prolonged period. It implies deep reflection. It's used when you're requesting time to process a complicated deal.
Like, thank you for the offer. I need a few days to mull it over and I'll get back to you.
Perfect. It suggests a weightier, slower decision process than just thinking about it. You are turning the idea over and over in your mind.
Like mulling spices.
Exactly. You are slowly soaking in the flavor.
And finally, when discussing how a project or situation ultimately develops, we use pan out.
Pan out is used to discuss the outcome or the results of a plan or situation. It originates from panning for gold. Did the effort yield gold, a positive outcome, or just dirt, a negative one? You might use it before the event. I'm not sure how this merger will pan out. Will the synergies work? Will there be challenges?
And if it fails, you use it in the negative past tense.
The new product launch didn't pan out as we had expected. It means the hoped-for success did not materialize. It's a versatile way to describe the success or failure of any large undertaking.
Let's move on to the verbs used constantly in daily life, especially those concerning movement, organization, and emotional volatility. These are the workhorse verbs you'll hear every single day.
Right, starting with travel and movement. When you are moving from place to place within a specific, usually localized area, you get around.
This is absolutely crucial for travelers or people new to a city. Tourists constantly ask, what's the best way to get around London without using the tube?
Or someone might advise you, the traffic is terrible, you should avoid driving to get around the city center. It's all about the logistics of local transit.
And if that transit is interrupted, you might be held up, which is a form of hold up.
Right, hold up means being delayed, and it's almost always used in the passive form because something external is causing the delay.
Okay, so it's usually the traffic, an emergency, or some logistical snag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm late, I was held up by a massive software update on my computer this morning. Or the police action held up all the cars on the freeway for 2 hours. The reason for the delay is the agent that causes the passive structure.
That applies whether you're delayed for 2 minutes or 2 hours. It just signals an interruption of travel or progress. Now, takeoff is a wonderful example of a simple verb that morphs meanings based on context.
It's a triple threat. First, it means leaving a location, especially for flights. My flight takes off at 7 a.m. Second, a person leaving a party or social gathering. I'm going to take off now. I've had a long day.
Third, and maybe most excitingly, it means becoming successful, often suddenly or rapidly. After I launched the mobile app, my career really took off.
And let's add the fourth, simple one, removing clothing. Please take off your wet coat. The context makes the meaning immediately clear, but for a learner, knowing all four applications is critical to comprehension.
Moving to appearance and status, when you quickly refresh or improve your look before an event, you freshen up.
This is a short, fast fix: brushing your hair, checking your makeup, reapplying deodorant. It's not a full routine, just a quick enhancement. You might excuse yourself from the dinner table. I'll be right back. I just need 5 minutes to freshen up.
Related to appearance, but more deliberate and formal, is dress up.
Dress up means wearing clothing that is more professional or formal than your usual attire, usually for a specific occasion. If you normally wear jeans, you dress up in a suit for a wedding.
We often use it as a question to confirm expectations, right? It's a black tie event, so yes, you definitely need to dress up.
Exactly.
Now, for a very common negative financial term, rip-off.
You use rip-off when the price paid is excessively high compared to the value received. It implies fraud or unfair exploitation. Crucially, the structure is transitive. You rip someone off. That antique dealer charged me $500 for a broken vase. He absolutely ripped me off.
So you can't say, I was ripped off to the price. You have to use the passive form with the person as the subject. I was ripped off.
Exactly. Or the dealer ripped me off. It must have an object of the action.
And what about things that deteriorate over time?
We use the adjective form worn out to describe something damaged, weakened, or exhausted due to age or excessive use. I need new hiking boots because my old ones are completely worn out. They've been used too much, they're falling apart, and they've reached the end of their lifespan.
When we need to organize or resolve a problem, we need to sort out the situation.
Sort out has that powerful dual meaning. It can mean organizing plans. I need to sort out the logistics for the weekend trip. That means organizing the hotels, cars, and itinerary.
Okay.
Or it can mean fixing a problem.
Yeah.
The hotel reservation was double booked, so I need to sort out the room situation.
So it handles both planning and problem solving, which makes it extremely useful in a professional context.
Yes. Let's meet tomorrow and sort out the timeline for the final phase. It conveys efficiency in resolution.
Emotional volatility brings us the highly expressive pair, flip out or freak out.
These are interchangeable and describe becoming extremely excited, a positive, strong emotion, or extremely angry and agitated, a negative, strong emotion. The context is what defines the valence.
So if the stock market crashes, the investors freak out with panic.
Right.
But if the company's stock doubles overnight, the investors flip out with joy. The intensity is the constant element.
The intensity is key. It's a sudden, overwhelming emotional response. If your favorite team just won the championship, you might tell a friend, the crowd is totally flipping out. That means massive, loud, positive energy.
Finally, how we bring the busy day to a close. To relax after stress, we wind down.
If you've had a busy, high-stress day, you need a routine to wind down. This could be reading, listening to music, or taking a slow walk. It implies a conscious effort to transition from high-intensity to low-intensity mode.
And if you get too relaxed, perhaps in a boring meeting, you might accidentally nod off.
That's falling asleep for a very short period of time, usually when you're not supposed to. It comes from the motion of your head dipping down as you momentarily lose consciousness. If you had a late night, you might nod off during a particularly long, rambling lecture.
And the simplest way to announce the end of the day is to turn in.
Turn in simply means to go to bed. It's an extremely common idiomatic phrase. Instead of saying, I'm tired, I'm going to bed, you use the slightly more natural phrase, I'm exhausted, I'm going to turn in.
We're moving into a critical section now, tackling one of the most powerful and, yes, confusing verbs in the English language, get. Understanding the phrasal variations of get is the absolute core to sounding fluent, because it is the ultimate utility verb.
It is infinitely adaptable. We have to first address the locational distinctions, which are surprisingly strict and governed by the physical space you're entering or exiting.
Okay, tell us the core rule of thumb for locomotion.
Think about the action required to enter the vehicle. If you can stand up, walk around, or climb up to enter like a plane, a train, a boat, or a bus, you use get on and get off.
So if the mode of transport allows for upright movement...
Precisely. You get on the train, you get off the boat. Now, if you are entering or exiting a vehicle where you generally have to duck, Sit down immediately or climb down like a car, a small van, or a truck, you use get in and get out of.
I got in my car, I need to get out of my car.
Yes, confusing these two sets is an immediate sign of a non-native speaker.
That is such a concrete rule. Standing and walking versus ducking and sitting, that makes it easy to remember.
It's the most reliable distinction in English phrasal verbs.
Beyond transport, we also use get in and get off, specifically to discuss work schedules.
Correct. Get in means to arrive at the office or start work. It can also mean simply entering a room or building. Your colleague might ask in passing, "What time did you get in today?"
And the corresponding phrase for the end of the day is get off.
Get off means to end work for the day. I'm hoping to get off early today. Note the common structure here. You get into work, but you get off from work, even though we often drop the preposition from in conversation.
Moving from logistics to ambition, we have the positive progression verb, get ahead.
Get ahead means to progress, especially in a career, financially, or academically. It implies striving for and achieving success and moving past competitors. If you want to achieve success in a global market, you need fluent communication to get ahead of the competition.
And you can contrast that upward movement with get by, which is more stationary and focused on survival.
Get by means having just enough resources, almost always financial, to survive without comfort. With rising costs, I can barely get by on my current salary. It implies a minimum level of existence. You're scraping by, paying your bills, but nothing is left over for savings or luxuries.
It often carries a slight implication of struggle, doesn't it? If someone asks how a new business is doing, and the owner says, we're getting by, that suggests they aren't thriving, just staying afloat.
Absolutely. It's an acknowledgement of difficulty.
Now let's tackle emotional resolution, the versatile get-over family. This verb has 3 distinct high-frequency applications.
First, generally, to get over something is telling someone they shouldn't maintain strong, usually negative feelings about a situation. If someone is dwelling on a minor mistake they made last month, you might tell them gently they need to get over it and move on.
The second meaning is highly specific to romantic feelings.
To get over someone means to cease having romantic feelings for that person after a breakup or divorce. This process is rarely quick. It took me years to truly get over my ex-partner. This is a deep emotional recovery verb.
And the third meaning relates specifically to health.
To get over an illness means recovering completely from it. It took the entire week to get over that terrible flu. It signals the conclusion of a period of sickness.
Related to emotional control, we have the tough love phrase, get it together.
When you tell someone they need to get it together, you're commanding them to take control of their life, their emotions, or their disorganization. It implies they are spiraling or acting erratically, and they need to regain composure and stability.
It's often used with an exclamation point.
Usually, yes.
So if a friend is panicking about a deadline they haven't started yet, you might say, hey, stop worrying, you need to get it together and start working. It's a call to action for self-management.
Exactly. It's tough love, often delivered with a sense of urgency.
Finally, let's explore the incredibly useful and layered get-through family, which has meanings related to endurance, completion, and connection.
First, to get through means to endure or deal with a difficult, prolonged situation. It was extremely hard for me to get through the loss of my father. Or professionally, I have a hard time getting through those Monday morning planning meetings with my difficult boss. It's about surviving a negative experience.
Secondly, it's used for successfully finishing a difficult task.
To get through something also means successfully finishing something time-consuming or mentally taxing. I finally got through the 130-page regulatory report this morning. The difficulty or length is the necessary qualifier here. You wouldn't say you got through a simple email.
And the third meaning is about successful communication or contact.
To get through to someone can mean successfully making contact after numerous attempts. You finally reach them on the phone. Or, perhaps more importantly, it means successfully communicating a complex or difficult idea so that the other person finally understands it. I tried to explain the financial model for 2 weeks, and I finally got through to her this morning. It implies breaking through resistance or stubbornness.
That distinction between contact and comprehension is vital. It shows just how much work that simple little verb through is doing in the phrase.
It transforms the act of speaking into the successful act of transmission and reception.
We'll wrap up by highlighting a few specialized advanced verbs that bring real precision to both professional policy and daily life. Let's start with how we introduce new concepts in a smart way.
To introduce a new law, rule, or policy gradually, little by little, we use phase in. This is a management verb.
Why is phasing in necessary? Why not just do it all at once?
Well, it's a strategic move to manage change and minimize disruption. If a company introduces a new complex software system, they will phase it in department by department over 6 months. This gives people time to train, to adapt, and allows the company to iron out bugs without a total system crash.
And if they introduce a new mandatory dress code?
They phase it in over 2 months to give employees time to shop for new clothes. It's considerate. It shows planning.
It sounds like a verb used by someone who understands logistics and human psychology.
It does. Speaking of major logistics, we have the specialized financial term, bail out.
To bail out means rescuing someone or something from a financially difficult situation.
This can be intensely personal, like a generous parent or sibling bailing out a relative who has crippling debt. Or it can be massive, involving billions of dollars, like the government having to bail out a major industry or a large bank to prevent economic collapse. It is always a high-stakes financial rescue.
Now for the more mischievous side of human nature, the art of cunning avoidance, which requires us to wiggle out of responsibility.
Wiggle out of. This means avoiding a task or responsibility that you don't want to do, usually by clever, quick, or cunning means. It suggests smooth evasion.
The classic example is planning an urgent but conveniently timed phone call right when you're supposed to start cleaning the garage.
Thereby wiggling out of the chore. Yes, it's always used when the person knows they should be doing the thing, but has found a skillful way to avoid it. There's a light tone of guilt or naughtiness associated with it.
On a more formal note of avoidance, we have dropout.
Dropout is quitting a specific course or an entire academic program. You drop out of college or you drop out of a single class. It signifies a permanent end to that specific academic pursuit.
And that ties back to the surprising facts we find in our sources, like the famous tech figures who dropped out of college to pursue their entrepreneurial dreams. Again, context is everything. For most people, dropping out is a setback, but for a few, it's a calculated risk that paid off.
It demonstrates the finality of the decision. You are formally removing yourself from the student registry.
Moving to quick organization and acquisition, to write something down quickly is to jot down.
Yes. It's often used in the imperative. Can you jot this down? It implies speed and brevity, just capturing the key information before you forget it. And the source confirms this still applies, even if you are taking notes electronically on your phone or tablet. The feeling of the action remains the same.
And for quick food preparation, we use whip up.
Whip up is specific to food and means making it quickly and often without much fuss or complexity. If you are rushing, you might need to whip up a quick sandwich for lunch. Or if guests arrive unexpectedly, you might whip up some appetizers using whatever's in your fridge.
Finally, let's discuss the power of chance, starting with luck out.
To luck out is being very lucky in a specific situation. It's a sudden windfall or a stroke of good fortune. I can't believe I lucked out and got the last iPhone on sale.
Or finding that amazing rare parking spot right outside the door during rush hour, you really lucked out.
Exactly. It's always a positive outcome, usually related to external circumstances.
And the opposite of a lucky opportunity is miss out on.
To miss out on means missing an important opportunity or experience that should have been taken, and the speaker feels regret about the absence.
Yeah.
If you didn't buy stock in a certain tech company 5 years ago, you missed out on a massive profit.
If you skipped a colleague's retirement party, you missed out on a wonderful celebration. The regret is intrinsic to the meaning.
It is.
Wow. We have successfully covered a massive amount of crucial knowledge today, from understanding the relational dynamics where money can literally come between two people, to the professional imperative to step it up if you want to get ahead, and the complex logistics of the get family of verbs.
The transition from basic to advanced English hinges entirely on this vocabulary. True fluency, as we've explored in detail, lies not just in knowing the definitions, but knowing the subtle contextual difference between verbs that may seem similar.
Right.
The active choice to tune out versus the involuntary action of zoning out. The difference between rescheduling by pushing back versus canceling entirely by calling off. These phrasal verbs are the core engine that drives natural, native-level speech.
That brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the learner. Since the contexts are so specific, social, professional, emotional, the next step is active listening, almost forensic listening.
I like that.
We suggest you start tracking and categorizing new phrasal verbs you encounter in media, movies, or real-life conversations. Don't just write down the definition, though. Specifically note who is speaking, who they are speaking to, and the exact situation to nail down the precise context of use.
So you're not just learning what it means, but how it feels.
Exactly. This process turns passive learning into your own daily deep dive, ensuring you truly internalize the nuance of where and when to use these powerful verbs to sound truly fluent. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is pretty laser focused. We are cracking what I think is the single biggest roadblock between you and, well, real English fluency.
Phrasal verbs.
Phrasal verbs, exactly. If you've ever had to, pause a native speaker because they said something like take off or bring up and it made zero sense, then you know why we're doing a full deep dive on this. Mastering these little word combinations is really, it's the ultimate shortcut to sounding natural.
Oh, it's so true. They're not just, an optional extra. Phrasal verbs are the connective tissue of everyday conversation.
Connective tissue, I like that.
And when we say phrasal verb, what we're talking about is a common verb, like look or get, combined with a tiny little word, a particle.
A particle, so that's the technical term.
Yep, a preposition or an adverb. And that little particle just completely transforms the verb's meaning. Think about look. It just means to, observe with your eyes.
Right.
But add the particle after, and suddenly look after means to care for someone. It's like almost linguistic alchemy.
And that simple little addition is what causes all the trouble, isn't it? It feels like this linguistic black hole where, logic just disappears for learners.
It can, yeah.
So to navigate this, we're using a great foundation today. It's a quiz that tests your knowledge of the 10 most essential phrasal verbs. We're going to walk through all 10, one by one.
And the goal here is that by the end of this, you won't just pass that quiz. You'll actually understand the subtle rules that, make a native speaker choose one verb over another.
Right. It's not about memorizing.
Exactly. We're drilling into the nuances. And to make this a bit easier to digest, we've organized them into 4 groups.
Okay.
First, we'll look at verbs of completion and cessation. So how we talk about ending things.
Got it.
Then we'll hit the verbs of operation. All the tech in our lives.
Sure.
After that, 3 really important verbs about movement and position.
Okay.
And we'll finish up with verbs of care and search, which is where some of the trickiest contrasts are.
Okay, let's do it. Let's jump right into that first group, the idea of depletion and stopping.
Let's do it.
So our first essential phrasal verb is run out of. Now, on the surface, this seems pretty straightforward, right? It means to use all of something, so you have absolutely none left. It's all about scarcity, finality.
And its most common use is tied directly to physical things, food, supplies.
Milk. It's always milk.
It's always milk. We ran out of milk is the classic domestic complaint, isn't it? The milk is gone. The problem is right now. But, and this is the interesting part, to sound truly fluent, you have to nail the grammar around it.
Ah, okay. This is where it gets critical because run out of really forces you to pay attention to English verb tenses, specifically the difference between the past simple and the present perfect.
Yes. This is a huge one. So you could just state the past action. You could say, yesterday we ran out of milk.
Right.
Past simple.
Right.
But you almost never hear a native speaker say that in casual conversation when they're talking about a current problem. What you hear constantly is the present perfect.
We've run out of milk.
Exactly. We've run out of milk.
So why is that? Why the preference for we have run out?
Because the present perfect signals that a past action has a direct, tangible consequence right now in the present.
Okay.
When you say we've run out of milk, the main message isn't about the past. The message is about the current situation.
Which is, we have no milk.
You have no milk, and therefore we need to go to the store now.
Yeah.
The focus completely shifts from when it happened to the result that's affecting us right now. It's just a very, very efficient way to communicate a current need.
Right. Without having to say, the milk is all gone, so we must now go and buy some more. The phrasal verb does all of that heavy lifting for you.
It really does.
I think that connection, past action, present consequence, that's the key. If you feel the impact now, you use the present perfect, but then there's also the present continuous.
Ah, yes. The third piece. And that signifies the process of depletion, not the final result.
So it's happening, but it hasn't finished yet.
Exactly. You're in a meeting, you look at the clock, you know you only have an hour, and time is ticking away. You'd say, we're running out of time.
You still have some time left.
You still have some, but the process is underway. And it usually has this tone of urgency, a warning. It's an active countdown.
And this is where the versatility really comes in, isn't it? Because run out of just immediately leaps from the physical, like milk or gas, for the the abstract.
Absolutely. We don't just run out of tangible things. We run out of patience.
Oh, that's a great example.
Yeah, that warning, I'm running out of patience. uses that continuous process to signal an emotional boundary,
Yeah.
It means my tolerance is actively shrinking, and if you don't stop, I'm going to hit my limit.
Right. You can also run out of ideas in a brainstorming session.
Or run out of luck. It just provides that instant sense of having exhausted your supply of any resource, whether it's liquid, mental, or emotional.
And a quick grammar note on this one, it's almost always inseparable, right?
Oh, yes. Good point.
You can't run the milk out of the object, the milk. It has to come after the whole phrase.
That's a great point. It's a solid unit. And that's a rule we'll have to keep an eye on because some of the other verbs we'll talk about, they can be split up.
Okay, moving from depletion to cessation, our next one is give up.
And the core meaning here is pretty clear. To stop trying to do something.
Yeah, and for anyone, learning a new language, this one really hits home. The source material had this great motivational line, don't give up just because you made a few mistakes.
It's part of the process.
Exactly. It speaks to that idea of perseverance, pushing through temporary frustration. If you spend an hour on a tough math problem and just can't get it, you might finally.
You give up.
You give up on solving it. It's like an admission of temporary defeat.
But, and this is where the complexity comes in, the meaning of give up changes dramatically depending on what you're giving up.
Right. When it refers to a long-term habit or an addiction, it becomes much more permanent. It means quitting.
That's the crucial distinction. That's what you have to get. If the object is a task, like the math problem, giving up is often about temporary frustration. But if the object is a habit, like smoking, giving up means permanent cessation.
Right. Let's use two examples. If I say I gave up running marathons,
Okay.
it probably means I just stopped doing it. Maybe I got injured or I don't have time. It's a change of plan.
Sure.
But if I say I gave up smoking,
That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
That means you quit. It's a definitive, long-term lifestyle change. The finality is completely different.
and you can use it abstractly too, can't you? Like with relationships. If you give up on a person.
Oh, that's a very subtle, high-level use.
Yeah.
It means you stop trying to help them, or you stop believing things can get better. You're stopping your emotional effort.
Or when a doctor says, we have to give up on finding a cure, that's the most dramatic form.
The stopping of hope. Exactly. It covers this huge spectrum, from quitting a project at work to abandoning a bad habit. It's an incredibly versatile phrasal verb.
Fascinating. So we've gone from the urgency of depletion to the finality of stopping. Now let's pivot to controlling our environment.
Okay, let's do it.
So part 2 brings us to the most frequently used phrasal verbs for operational control: turn on and turn off. Now, some might say these are too obvious, but I think that's precisely why they're so important.
I agree. They're the ultimate obvious pair. They're direct opposites for activation and deactivation. But their simplicity is, well, it's deceptive. They play a critical role in our lives.
Especially in a world run by technology.
Exactly. These are the commands we use constantly, often without even thinking.
The source material connected it to personal assistants, like Alexa or Siri, which I thought was a great point.
Yeah.
We don't use formal language with our tech. We use these simple 2-word commands. You don't say, activate the climate control system.
No, you say turn on the air conditioning. It's just efficient. Think about your day. Turn on the coffee machine, turn on the computer, turn off the alarm. They just encapsulate this whole complex action of activating or deactivating a machine into 2 little words.
But the real reason these are so important to analyze for a learner is because they are prime examples of separable phrasal verbs.
Yes, absolutely vital. This is a concept every advanced learner has to understand.
So what does separable mean here?
It means you can place the object, the thing you're turning on or off, between the verb and the particle.
Okay, so you can say turn on the lights, or you can say turn the lights on.
And both are perfectly correct.
But, and this is the rule that really separates a fluent speaker from a hesitant one, if you use a pronoun, like it or them,
You must separate them.
it becomes mandatory.
Precisely. You would never, ever say, turn on them. It just sounds completely wrong.
Right.
You have to say, the lights are too bright, please turn them off. Or, the TV is loud, please turn it down. The second you swap that noun for a pronoun, separation is not optional. It's a must.
Mastering that one rule will instantly make your speech sound more fluent. Okay, so that's the structure. But let's go back to the idea that these are too simple. That's only if you use them literally, right? What about the metaphorical uses?
Now this is where the fun begins. Turn on and turn off have incredible metaphorical reach.
For instance, the phrase turn on the charm.
Exactly. You're not flipping a physical switch. You're activating a behavior, a personality trait.
Yeah.
If you see someone being really persuasive to get what they want, you might say,
"Oh, here he goes. He's turning on the charm."
yep, he's activating a specific persona. It's an intentional switch.
And the opposite works perfectly for turn off. We use it a lot when we're talking about disengaging from something.
Yeah, often with the media, I had to turn off the news.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you hit the power button on the TV. It means you mentally disengage from the overwhelming content.
Right. Or a person can turn you off.
Yes, meaning they make you feel disgusted or bored. They deactivated your interest in them.
I've even heard parents say to a crying child, "Turn off the waterworks."
Perfect example. It's treating crying as if it's a device you can just manually deactivate. So you see, these verbs are foundational. We use them to control tech, emotions, behavior, pretty much anything in our daily lives.
That's a much deeper context. Okay, so now let's shift from controlling technology to controlling our physical bodies.
Movement and position.
Yeah, so we have 3 verbs that deal with changing what's on your body or where your body is. Let's start with take off.
Take off is a great one. It has these 2 equally common personalities. The first one is all about removal from the body, usually clothing or accessories.
Right, you come in from the cold, you take off your coat.
And it's so tied to etiquette, isn't it? The classic request when you enter someone's home is, please take off your shoes. It's an instruction for removal.
And structurally, this is another separable one, right?
Another great example of a separable verb. You can say, take off your shoes or take your shoes off.
And if you use a pronoun,
You have to separate it. They're dirty, take them off.
okay, so that removal meaning is straightforward. But the second meaning has nothing to do with clothes. It's all about departure.
Correct. When we talk about travel, especially planes, take off means to leave. My flight was supposed to take off at noon. It's the action of the plane lifting off the ground and starting its journey.
And that meaning is so powerful that it's expanded metaphorically, hasn't it? To describe, like, rapid success.
Oh, absolutely. Think about a new business. If it achieves instant success, people say the business really took off.
Right.
It means it left the starting line and just soared into quick growth. It connects that literal image of a plane leaving the ground with the abstract idea of high-velocity success.
So the same 2 words can describe removing your socks and launching a multi-million-dollar company. That really shows the efficiency we're talking about.
It's incredible.
Okay, so if takeoff is about removal, the next one, put on, is the logical opposite.
It's the direct counterpoint. It's about adding clothing or accessories to your body.
And the core idea here is the action of wearing something. This is a really important distinction for learners. Put on is the action, but where is the state?
Precisely. You put on the jacket.
And then you wear the jacket all day.
Exactly. So the classic use is giving advice. It looks chilly outside, you should put on a hat. It's urging the action of applying the hat to your head.
But just like take off, this verb stretches beyond just clothing, right? It moves into substances you apply.
Yes, this is essential. You put on makeup, you put on sunscreen, you put on a bandage. In these cases, it basically means the same thing as apply, but in casual everyday conversation, put on is what you'll almost always hear.
And there's a complex sort of negative metaphorical use. Have you heard someone say that another person is putting on an accent?
Oh, yes. That means they're faking it.
They're pretending.
Yeah. If someone you know is from Texas and they suddenly start speaking with a very formal British accent, you'd say they're putting on a fake accent. It means they're artificially applying something external to their real identity, like a costume.
That shows the real depth here. And structurally, put on is also separable.
Also separable. Put on the sweater, put the sweater on, and if the sweater is in your hand.
Yeah, you have to say, put it on. The pronoun rule still holds.
Always.
Okay, our final verb in this movement section is get up.
A phrase that marks the start of our day for most of us.
The first, most common meaning is simply waking up and getting out of bed in the morning. I like the example from the source. I get up at 5:50 a.m. every day, but on Sundays, I get up at 7 a.m.
It clearly defines a routine and an exception to it. That's the default meaning in a morning context. But this is one of those crucial cases where the context changes everything.
Because it has a second meaning that has nothing to do with sleep.
Nothing at all. It just means to rise from a lying or sitting position.
This is where that office anecdote is so helpful for understanding the difference. So let's set the scene. You're lying on a comfortable couch in the office, totally awake, maybe scrolling on your phone.
And you're not supposed to be. Then your colleague spots the boss, Rob, coming down the hall. They whisper urgently, "Quick, get up. Rob's coming." In that moment, get up isn't an instruction to wake up. It's an urgent command to rise from your resting position and look busy.
So if I'm sitting on the sofa watching TV and I want a snack, I could say to myself, I should get up and go to the kitchen. I'm rising from a seated position, not waking up.
Exactly. It's the transition from a horizontal or seated state to a vertical active one. And for structure, get up is almost always inseparable when you're talking about the person rising.
Right, you can't get yourself up in that separated way. It functions as a complete unit.
It does. And that subtle shift in separability and context is exactly what makes mastering these verbs so important.
Okay, now we're into our final group. This is all about how we interact with, care for, and find people and things. And this section has some of the most critical contrasts for a learner to get right.
Especially the difference between permanent and temporary care.
We're starting with bring up.
Bring up is fascinating. Its two main meanings feel so different, but they're linked by this idea of raising something, either to maturity or to the surface.
So, meaning number one, to raise a child.
The permanent long-term responsibility. Caring for a child from infancy all the way to adulthood, it implies this comprehensive ongoing nurture.
And the example was so strong, she's bringing up 3 children on her own, meaning she's solely responsible for their permanent care, their education, everything.
That idea of permanency is the key. And we should also mention the past tense. Brought, people often use it in the passive. I was brought up in a small town.
Meaning I was raised there. Okay, now for the completely unrelated second meaning, to raise a topic for discussion.
Right. And this is crucial in any professional setting. If you're in a meeting and you introduce a new piece of information, you are bringing up that point.
For example, he brought up the critical budget issue that nobody else wanted to talk about.
Yes, he pulled it from the background to the center of the discussion. And often, there's an implication about the timing or the difficulty of the topic, isn't there?
Yeah, you don't really bring up the weather. You bring up something that's sensitive or difficult.
Right. You might even preface it. You might say, look, I hate to bring this up, but we need to talk about the deadline. The hesitation shows you know the topic is a difficult one to raise.
Okay, so that's bring up. Now let's move directly to look after, because this is where we see that critical contrast we mentioned.
Yes. Permanent versus temporary care. This is a distinction that really separates an intermediate learner from a fluent speaker.
So if bring up means permanent responsibility,
then look after means temporary care, just for a limited period of time.
So as a parent, you wouldn't say, I am looking after my children as a general statement.
No, that would sound very strange. Unless you are specifying a very temporary moment, like, I'm looking after them for 5 minutes while my spouse is on the phone. The temporary context is everything.
The example from the source was brilliant. My son's 16, so he looks after his younger brothers while I'm at work.
Perfect. The 16-year-old is the temporary caretaker for a defined window of time. He's not raising them, he's babysitting them for a couple of hours.
And this extends so easily to objects and pets.
Oh, absolutely. This is the phrase you use before you go on vacation. Could you look after my cat while I'm away?
Or even for a few minutes. Can you look after my laptop? I just need to use the restroom.
In that context, look after basically means guard or take temporary custody of.
And that detail about responsibility is so key. When you ask someone to look after something, you're placing a lot of trust in them. I loved the joke in the source material. You better not kill my plants.
It perfectly captures the seriousness of that temporary responsibility. It implies you need to be careful. And structurally, look after is almost always inseparable.
Right. You look after the cat, you never look the cat after. The object has to come at the end.
Always.
Okay, finally, we have look for. This brings us back to a simple, very high-frequency action.
Look for is a phrasal verb of searching. It's very straightforward, to try to find or locate someone or something.
And this is the language of, like, universal daily frustration. We're always looking for things.
Aren't we?
Our wallet, our keys, the TV remote. It covers every single time you're trying to locate something.
And it's almost always preferred over a more formal verb like search. Asking, can you help me look for my keys, is just so much more natural than, can you help me search for my key?
Right. It's the direct substitute for find or locate when you're talking about the process of searching, not the result.
That's the key, the process.
Yeah.
You can use it for people too, especially in crowded places. The example was so good. I looked for you at the conference, but it was just too busy.
That perfectly conveys the intent and the effort, doesn't it? The speaker tried to find the person, but the environment, the crowd, it was just too much of an obstacle.
It emphasizes that look for is about the active effort, whether you succeed or not.
And just a quick distinction, if you're looking for information, say, in a dictionary or online, you don't use look for.
Excellent point. You use look up.
So look for is more of a physical, spatial search.
And look up is an intellectual search for data.
Mm.
And like the other care verbs, look for is also inseparable. You look for the keys, not look the keys for.
Okay. That rounds out our 10 essential phrasal verbs. We've gone from, running out of milk and time through controlling our tech, moving our bodies, and finally the effort of caring and searching.
Mm-hmm.
We started this deep dive saying that mastering these 10 verbs is a major shortcut to fluency. And, well, having gone through the grammar, the context, all the nuances, I really think that promise holds up.
I think so too.
We've gone way beyond just simple definitions. We've analyzed why you use the present perfect for run out of, and really nailed down the crucial difference between temporary care with look after and permanent nurture with bring up.
And if you were feeling a bit intimidated by that initial quiz, you now have the framework to totally ace it. Because you don't just know what the words mean, you know how native speakers actually use them.
Right.
These verbs, they seem so small, but they are the heavy lifters of the English language. Understanding those rules of separability, knowing you must say, turn it on, that's what moves you from just comprehension to natural, rapid application. You're equipped now to sound like you really mean it.
And the power of these tiny particles up, off, out, it's just incredible. They save us from having to use these long, formal, often really awkward sentences. They're the definition of efficiency.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to consider. We've seen how one simple particle can completely change a verb. Look, which is just to observe, becomes look after, to care for, or look for, to search. Just think about the sheer linguistic efficiency that represents. Imagine if you had to use a completely different, unique word for every single one of those concepts.
It would be so much harder.
English instead uses this modular system, a core verb, plus a tiny, unassuming particle.
It's like a linguistic compound, or an equation where the particle is the variable that transforms the whole thing.
Precisely. This structural magic, this ability to transform simple verbs into complex, contextual ideas using this limited set of particles, that's what makes English so expressive, but also so tricky to master.
So the challenge now?
The challenge now is to start noticing how those small particles are used in new combinations with verbs that weren't on our list today. Start observing that modular system in action in every conversation you hear. You've cracked the code on the first 10. Now just keep listening for the patterns.